The elegant envelope trembled in Sadie Marlowe's hands. Around her, 200 guests fell silent, champagne glasses frozen mid-set. Her fingers, adorned with a 10-carat anniversary ring, broke the seal. Her eyes widened, her perfect smile collapsed. Sometimes betrayal comes gift-wrapped at your own birthday party. The divorce papers caught the light, stark black text on white legal paper. Her husband, Yusuf, stood 3 feet away, his wedding band already removed, his face a mask of cold finality. "This is the end," he announced, loud enough for the front row of guests to hear. In that moment, the ballroom's crystal chandeliers might as well have crashed down around her. The crowd's collective gasp provided the soundtrack to her public humiliation. Have you ever had your life shattered in front of everyone you know? That instant when private pain becomes public spectacle. From across the room, Arthur Kensington, Billionaire CEO, and a man Sadie knew only through business circles, witnessed everything. His expression shifted from shock to something else entirely as he watched tears streak her makeup. What happened that night would change the course of 3 lives forever. A betrayal that ran deeper than heartbreak, a conspiracy hidden beneath luxury and lies, and a proposal no one could have anticipated. If stories of resilience against devastating betrayal resonate with you, subscribe now, because this tale of treachery, revenge, and unexpected alliance reveals how sometimes our worst moments lead to our most powerful transformations. Sadie Marlowe commanded every boardroom she entered. At 38, she had transformed a modest inheritance into Marlowe & Co., a boutique investment firm that managed portfolios worth billions. Her financial instincts had become legendary in Manhattan's financial district. She predicted market shifts weeks before industry analysts, and her client list included former presidents and tech moguls. The Wall Street Journal had profiled her twice. Forbes listed her among their 40 under 40. Her TED Talk on ethical investing had garnered 3 million views, but beyond her professional acumen, Sadie possessed something rarer: genuine warmth that made even her competitors want to collaborate. "She sees opportunities where others see obstacles," read the Bloomberg profile that hung framed in her corner office, overlooking Central Park. When Sadie married Yusuf Alami 5 years ago, the business world called it a merger rather than a wedding. As CEO of Horizon Technologies, Yusuf had pioneered quantum computing solutions that had governments and corporations competing for his attention. Dark eyes, sharp jawline, and a voice that commanded attention, he moved through rooms like he owned them. Because usually, he did. Together they became New York's golden couple. Their penthouse in Tribeca graced the cover of Architectural Digest. Minimalist luxury with floor-to-ceiling windows and a private rooftop garden where they hosted intimate gatherings for select friends and strategic business connections. They vacationed on private islands. They donated millions to children's education in developing countries. Their anniversary parties became networking events everyone scrambled to attend. Their holiday cards were photographed by Annie Leibovitz. But perfection demands maintenance. In recent months, Sadie noticed Yusuf's lingering glances at his phone. Dinner conversations that once flowed until midnight now dried up before dessert. His business trips multiplied. His explanations grew shorter. The space between them in their California king bed widened night after night. "Late meeting," read his texts. "Don't wait up." She found a strange earring in their private elevator once. He dismissed it quickly. Must belong to someone in the building. Their last genuine kiss had been 73 days ago. Sadie remembered because it was the morning after they'd won the Philanthropy Impact Award. She'd kept count since then, of half-hearted embraces, of conversations that ended abruptly, of questions he'd deflected. Still, Sadie believed in repairing, not replacing. Her upcoming birthday presented the perfect opportunity to reconnect. She reserved the grand ballroom at the Lancaster Hotel. She hired Yusuf's favorite jazz quartet. She selected a menu featuring the seafood he'd loved on their honeymoon in Santorini. The guest list included 200 of their closest connections. The invitations, hand-calligraphed on imported paper, promised an evening celebrating new beginnings. Sadie chose an emerald gown that matched the earrings Yusuf had given her on their first anniversary. She scheduled their favorite photographer. She rehearsed her speech thanking her husband for his unwavering support. She never suspected she was planning the backdrop for her own devastation. The grand ballroom at the Lancaster Hotel transformed under Sadie's meticulous direction. Crystal chandeliers cast honeyed light across marble floors. Ice sculptures, shaped like Marlowe & Co.'s logo, caught and refracted light at strategic points throughout the room. White orchids and pale roses adorned every table. Understated elegance that spoke of wealth without flaunting it. By 8 o'clock, the room hummed with 200 guests in evening wear. Board members clinked glasses with venture capitalists. Fashion designers compared notes with tech innovators. A senator laughed with a Nobel laureate. This wasn't merely a birthday celebration, but a testament to Sadie's carefully cultivated network. Each invitation extended with purpose, each seating arrangement calculated for maximum connection. The quartet played Cole Porter classics. Waitstaff gilded between clusters of guests with champagne flutes and hors d'oeuvres. Photographers captured candid moments that would appear in society pages the following week. Sadie moved through the crowd, her emerald gown catching light with each step. The dress, a custom Valentino with an asymmetrical neckline, had been designed to complement both her auburn hair and the emerald earrings from Yusuf. She had spent 3 hours in preparation, hair styled in loose waves, makeup enhancing rather than masking. Nails painted a subtle nude. Stunning, as always, guests told her as she accepted birthday wishes. The party of the season. Her smile remained fixed, warm but increasingly strained. Yusuf had texted that he would be slightly delayed. 45 minutes had passed since then. His absence created an empty space beside her that guests had begun to notice. Near the bar stood Arthur Kensington, founder of Kensington Innovations. At 52, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had nothing left to prove. No flashy watch, no designer label visible, just impeccable tailoring and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Unlike many in the room, he observed more than he spoke. Sadie had crossed paths with Arthur at conferences and charity galas, but never in her inner circle. Tonight he had arrived alone, carrying a small, tasteful gift box that now sat on the present table. When their eyes met across the room, he offered a respectful nod. She returned it, making a mental note to thank him personally later. Her phone buzzed in the hidden pocket of her gown. Another text from Yusuf, almost there. Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by annoyance. This was supposed to be their reconnection, yet he couldn't arrive on time. She slipped the phone away, plastering on her professional smile once more. The bartender handed her a glass of water rather than champagne. He'd noticed she hadn't touched alcohol all evening. "Saving yourself for the toast?" he asked. "Something like that," she replied. In truth, she wanted complete clarity when Yusuf arrived. Every word, every reaction. She needed to catalog them, understand what had gone wrong between them. Small details kept interrupting her practiced social rhythm. A junior associate from her firm whispered something and abruptly stopped when Sadie approached. 2 board members exchanged glances when she mentioned Yusuf's imminent arrival. Her assistant's smile seemed tinged with pity. A flash of movement caught her eye, the hotel doors opening. Yusuf entered, immaculate in his tuxedo. Their eyes met across the ballroom. His expression revealed nothing as he made his way toward her, stopping briefly to accept a small package from his driver. Sadie straightened her shoulders, the emeralds at her ears catching the light. The moment of reconnection had arrived at last. The quartet shifted to a slower melody as Yusuf crossed the ballroom floor. Conversations hushed in rippling silence as guests noticed his arrival. He moved with deliberate steps, his expression composed, almost rehearsed. In his right hand he carried a small box wrapped in silver paper and tied with a midnight blue ribbon. In his left, a cream-colored envelope, thick with what appeared to be multiple pages. Sadie felt her pulse quicken. The distance between them, 30 feet, 20, 10, seemed both infinite and too quickly traversed. She adjusted her emerald earrings, a nervous habit from their early dating days. "Yusuf," she said, voice steady despite the anxiety bubbling beneath. "I was beginning to think you'd miss your own toast." He didn't smile, not even the polite public smile he'd perfected for business functions. "There won't be a toast," he replied, voice low enough that only those nearest could hear. The string quartet continued playing, oblivious to the tension mounting between the celebrated couple. A photographer approached, camera raised. Yusuf waved him away with a sharp gesture. "What are you talking about?" Sadie's practiced smile faltered. "Everyone's waiting." Around them, a small circle of space had formed, as guests instinctively sensed a private moment unfolding. Yet not private enough. Dozens of eyes watched with growing curiosity. "I've been waiting too, Sadie. Waiting for the right time." He extended the envelope toward her. "I decided your birthday was appropriate." Confusion clouded her features as she accepted the envelope. The paper felt expensive, heavy, the kind used for significant documents. Her name was printed on the front in a formal typeset, not Yusuf's handwriting. "Open it," he instructed, his voice devoid of emotion. Time seemed to suspend as Sadie broke the seal. The sound of tearing paper carried in the sudden hush that had fallen over the nearby guests. She extracted the contents: legal documents, multiple pages, blue tabs indicating signature lines. The bold heading at the top of the first page registered instantly: "Petition for dissolution of marriage." Her breath caught. Blood drained from her face, leaving her makeup stark against suddenly pale skin. The papers trembled in her grip. "You're divorcing me?" she whispered, the words emerging as a statement, not a question. "Yes." Yusuf's expression remained unchanged. He opened the small gift box and placed his platinum wedding band inside with theatrical precision. The band made a dull sound as it settled against the velvet lining. "This is the end," he said, voice raising just enough that the front row of onlookers could hear clearly. The quartet played on, the cheerful notes now grotesquely mismatched to the scene unfolding in the center of the ballroom. Someone, Sadie's assistant perhaps, rushed to signal them to stop. The music died in awkward discord, leaving only murmurs and gasps to fill the acoustic space. "At my birthday party?" Sadie's voice cracked, the professional facade crumbling. "In front of everyone?" "I thought it was fitting. You've always liked an audience." Yusuf's mouth curved into something resembling a smile but empty of warmth. "Check page 4. My terms are generous." A photographer, missing the gravity of the moment, captured a flash image. The light caught Sadie's tears just as they spilled onto her cheeks, tracking through her carefully applied makeup. The divorce papers slipped from her fingers, scattering across the marble floor. Someone in the crowd made a strangled sound, horror or fascination impossible to distinguish. A waiter froze mid-step. A tray of champagne flutes balanced precariously. From his position near the bar, Arthur Kensington witnessed the entirety of Sadie's humiliation. His expression shifted from shock to quiet anger as he observed Yusuf's calculated cruelty. Arthur set down his untouched scotch, eyes never leaving the unfolding scene. 5 years, Sadie managed, voice barely audible. 5 years, and you do this here, tonight? Efficiency, Yusuf replied, straightening his already perfect tie. My attorney will contact you tomorrow. Excuse me. He turned away, moving toward the exit with measured steps. The crowd parted, some guests averting their eyes, others watching with undisguised fascination. No one moved to comfort Sadie as she stood frozen, tears flowing freely now. Her assistant finally rushed forward, gathering the scattered papers. Someone whispered urgently to the event manager. The photographer was escorted away. But the damage was complete, her devastation documented in real time, witnessed by everyone who mattered in her professional and social world. Have you ever watched someone's life collapse in public? That moment when private pain becomes community property? How did you react? Did you turn away in embarrassment? Or did you step forward to help pick up the pieces? The emeralds at Sadie's ears caught the light as she straightened her shoulders, refusing to run, refusing to hide, even as her carefully constructed world shattered around her. The Lancaster Hotel provided a private suite for Sadie after her assistant whisked her away from the ballroom floor. The elegant room, with its panoramic views of the Manhattan skyline, now felt like an expensive prison. Sadie sat motionless on a cream-colored sofa, makeup streaked down her face. The emerald gown pooled around her like spilled ink. "Everyone saw," she whispered to no one. "Everyone." Her phone vibrates constantly. Text messages, calls, notifications from news alerts already picking up the story. A powerful CEO publicly humiliated at her own birthday celebration, made for irresistible headlines. She couldn't bring herself to look. A soft knock at the door preceded her assistant's concerned face. "Mr. Marlowe? Mr. Kensington is asking if you need anything. Should I send him away?" Sadie almost agreed automatically, but something stopped her. "No," she heard herself say. "Let him in." Arthur Kensington entered with none of the entitled confidence typical of men of his stature. He carried 2 cups of tea and set one beside her without presumption. "I thought you might prefer this to alcohol," he said, taking the armchair across from her rather than the space beside her on the sofa. "I've asked the hotel staff to ensure no reporters access this floor." "Thank you." The words felt hollow in her mouth. "Though I'm not sure why you're helping me." Arthur didn't offer platitudes or empty reassurances. Instead, he said, "I've admired your work for years, Miss Marlowe. What happened tonight was calculated cruelty, and no one deserves that." His straightforward assessment broke through her shock. The tears returned, but different now, hot with anger rather than humiliation. "Did you know?" she asked suddenly. "Did everyone know except me?" "No," Arthur replied firmly. "But something about his timing feels deliberate, beyond mere cruelty." Sadie's phone rang again, a specific ringtone this time. She reached for it immediately. "Kennedy, my legal advisor, and my closest friend." Kennedy Harper arrived 20 minutes later, bypassing hotel security with practiced ease. Tall, with close-cropped silver hair and a tailored suit that suggested both wealth and practicality, she entered the suite already in motion. "I've frozen your joint accounts," she announced without preamble. "And I've filed emergency motions to protect Marlowe & Co. assets. We can discuss details when you're ready." Kennedy's efficiency was both comforting and alarming. She nodded briefly to Arthur, assessing him with a lawyer's precision, before turning back to Sadie. "There's something else," Kennedy said, her voice lowering. "The timing isn't accidental. I received a call from Marcus in IT an hour ago. Someone accessed sensitive client files using your credentials yesterday evening." Sadie straightened. "That's impossible. I haven't logged into that server in weeks." "Exactly." Kennedy pulled out her tablet, displaying a log of access times. "Yet, according to this, you've been reviewing confidential investment strategies at 2 a.m. for the past month." Arthur, who had remained respectfully quiet, leaned forward. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the tablet. Kennedy hesitated, looking to Sadie for permission. Sadie nodded. Arthur studied the screen, his expression darkening. "These access patterns match something I've seen before. It's a specific extraction technique, designed to gradually copy data while mimicking normal user behavior." "Corporespionage?" Sadie's voice sharpened, professional instincts temporarily overriding personal pain. "Perhaps," Arthur said, "but the timing suggests more. This, combined with your public humiliation tonight, feels coordinated." Kennedy nodded grimly. "And there's one more thing. That new investment analyst you hired 3 months ago? Ava Rice? What about her?" "She called in her resignation this evening. Effective immediately." Kennedy paused. 30 minutes before Yusuf arrived at your party." The three sat in weighted silence as implications crystallized. Sadie's fingers found her emerald earrings, Yusuf's gift, and slowly removed them, placing them on the coffee table with deliberate care. "I need to know everything," she said, her voice finding new strength. "Starting from the beginning." Dawn broke over Manhattan as Sadie, Kennedy, and Arthur gathered in the secure conference room at Kennedy's law firm. The wall-to-wall windows, normally showcasing spectacular views, were now covered with blinds. Three laptops hummed on the polished table alongside empty coffee cups. "Ava Rice doesn't exist," Kennedy announced, turning her screen towards Sadie. "At least, not the Ava Rice you hired." The display showed two passport photos side by side, both featuring the same sharp cheekbones and calculating eyes, but with different names and biographical details. On the left is Ava Rice, the Harvard MBA with stellar recommendations who joined Marlowe & Co. On the right is Elena Petrov, identified in 3 different financial fraud investigations across Europe. Never charged, always vanishing before authorities could build a case. Sadie stared at the images, remembering how enthusiastically Yusuf had endorsed Ava's hiring. "He knew," she whispered. "He planted her." Arthur's team had worked through the night, tracing digital footprints through Marlowe & Co.'s systems. He pulled up a complex diagram on the central monitor. "Your company handles investments for some of the most influential people in the world," he explained. What Ava, or Elena, extracted wasn't just account numbers. She mapped relationship patterns, personal investment triggers, and psychological profiles of your top 50 clients. Kennedy nodded grimly. With that information, someone could predict market movements by anticipating how these key players would react to certain events. "Someone like Yusuf," Sadie concluded, her voice flat. The investigation expanded like concentric rings in water. Financial analysts traced unusual trading patterns connected to shell companies. IT specialists recovered deleted communications. Private investigators documented meetings between Yusuf and Ava dating back 8 months. Each revelation hit Sadie with physical force. 5 years of marriage recontextualized with every document, every timestamp, every photograph. The Bali vacation where Yusuf had forgotten his phone, now proven to be a meeting with financial backers. The charity gala where he'd disappeared for an hour. Surveillance footage showed him with Ava in the hotel's business center. "The night he proposed," Sadie said suddenly, scrolling through timestamps on her tablet. "He had just joined the board at Tech Fusion. 2 weeks later, they became Marlowe & Co.'s biggest client." Arthur glanced up from his notes. "Tech Fusion has extensive government contracts. Access to their investment patterns would be invaluable." "Are you saying our entire marriage was a business strategy?" The question hung in the air, too painful to answer directly. By midday, the picture had solidified. Yusuf had orchestrated a years-long operation to access Marlowe & Co.'s client data. The divorce papers, deliberately served at Sadie's birthday party, were timed to coincide with a major market play. While she dealt with public humiliation, Yusuf's algorithms would exploit the data stolen by Ava, executing trades based on predictive models of how Sadie's influential clients would react to economic news. "The SEC needs to know immediately," Kennedy insisted. "Not yet," Sadie countered, examining financial projections. "If we alert them now, Yusuf will know we've discovered the scheme. We need more evidence first." Around 3 p.m., Arthur's security team reported another finding. Ava Rice had boarded a private jet to Zurich that morning. A jet registered to one of Yusuf's subsidiary companies. "The final phase is underway," Arthur concluded. "They're moving their operation offshore before executing the trades." Kennedy gestured to a stack of legal documents. "I've prepared emergency injunctions against Yusuf's primary accounts, but his overseas holdings are beyond immediate reach." Sadie stared out the window, watching afternoon shadows stretch across the city. Her personal and professional lives were simultaneously imploding, yet her mind worked with unexpected clarity. "We've been approaching this reactively," she said finally. "That stops now." She turned to face Kennedy and Arthur, a new resolve hardening her features. "What if we could reverse their strategy, use their expectations against them?" For the next 2 hours, they mapped out a counteroffensive. Sadie would appear publicly devastated, feeding the narrative Yusuf expected. Meanwhile, her team would establish a parallel system to monitor and document every move he and Ava made. When they executed their market play, they would capture irrefutable evidence. "It's risky," Kennedy cautioned. "If they realize you're onto them—" "They won't," Sadie interrupted. Yusuf believes I'm exactly what he's made me appear to be. A successful businesswoman, but ultimately a trusting wife who never saw the betrayal coming. Her laugh held no humor. His greatest advantage is now his greatest weakness. As evening approached, Sadie stood alone in her office at Marlowe & Co., surveying the city lights emerging in the dusk. On her desk sat the divorce papers, now reviewed by Kennedy's team. Behind the legal jargon lay another layer of deception. Clauses designed to destabilize her control of the company during the critical days ahead. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Yusuf. "Hope you're doing well. We should discuss arrangements civilly." The false concern made her stomach turn. 5 years sleeping beside someone who had calculated every smile, every anniversary gift, every intimate moment as steps in a business strategy. Have you ever looked back at a relationship and wondered if any of it was real? How do you rebuild trust when the very foundation of your judgment has been shaken? When the person closest to you proves to be a stranger wearing a familiar face? Sadie set down her phone without replying and turned instead to her computer, beginning the first phase of their counterstrike. 3 days after the birthday party disaster, Sadie received a handwritten note at her temporary apartment. The stationery bore no monogram or corporate logo, just high-quality paper with a simple message. "A business matter to discuss. Dinner tomorrow, 8 p.m. Private dining room at Ver. No publicity. A." Despite everything demanding her attention, Sadie found herself accepting. Perhaps because Arthur had been the only person at the party who had offered help without performative sympathy or thinly veiled curiosity. Ver occupied the top floor of a renovated historic building in Tribeca. Known for exceptional food and absolute discretion, it catered to those who could afford privacy in a city that commodified everything. The maitre d' escorted Sadie directly to a separate elevator that opened into a single, secluded dining room. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Brooklyn Bridge, illuminated against the night sky. A single table was set with understated elegance, fine china, crystal, fresh flowers, but nothing ostentatious. Arthur stood when she entered, his expression revealing genuine concern rather than business interest. "Thank you for coming," he said simply. "I wasn't certain you would." "I surprised myself," Sadie admitted, accepting the chair he offered. 2 glasses of sparkling water, not champagne, awaited them. Arthur noticed her glance and explained, "I assumed alcohol might not be welcome given the circumstances." "Perceptive," she acknowledged, "though I wouldn't refuse a good bourbon tonight." A small smile crossed his face. He signaled discreetly, and within moments 2 crystal tumblers appeared with amber liquid. "To clarity," he said, raising his glass, "something I believe we both value." The first course arrived, a delicate composition of seasonal flavors. They spoke of neutral topics, architecture, recent exhibitions at the Whitney, changes in the financial district, professional colleagues sharing a meal, nothing more. As dessert was served, Arthur finally addressed what had brought them together. "I watched what happened at your birthday," he began, his voice measured. "It wasn't just cruel. It was calculated to maximize damage to both your personal standing and market confidence in Marlowe & Co." Sadie set down her spoon. "Most people have been careful to avoid mentioning it directly." "I'm not most people." Arthur's directness was refreshing after days of careful evasion from others. "What Yusuf did reveals much about his character and nothing about yours." "That's generous," she replied, "but the market doesn't run on generosity. Client calls have been non-stop, questions about stability, succession planning, whether their portfolios are secure." "Which brings me to my proposal." Arthur leaned forward slightly. "Kensington Innovations has been seeking an investment partner with your specific expertise in emerging markets. We've accumulated significant capital from our technology ventures that requires strategic deployment." "You want to become a client? Now?" Disbelief colored her voice. "More than that." He removed a slim folder from his briefcase and placed it before her. "I want Kensington to make a substantial equity investment in Marlowe & Co." Sadie opened the folder cautiously. The numbers inside made her pause. "This would represent nearly 30% ownership," she observed. "Yes." With guaranteed board seats but no operational control, your leadership remains absolute. Why? The question was direct. Arthur considered his response carefully. 3 reasons. First, financially, I believe Marlowe & Co. is fundamentally sound despite the current circumstances. Second, strategically, our companies have complementary strengths. And third, he paused, I respect how you've handled yourself through all of this. Her gaze sharpened. This isn't charity. I don't do charity in business, he replied firmly. This is an opportunity for both of us. The proposal outlined exactly what Sadie needed: immediate capital to stabilize operations, market confidence through association with Kensington's sterling reputation, and resources to fight back against Yusuf's scheme. The timing is convenient, she noted, caution evident in her tone. It's deliberate, Arthur admitted. What Yusuf attempted required significant resources and partners. My security team has identified suspicious trading patterns through offshore accounts connected to his associates. They're positioning for something substantial, likely timed to coincide with your expected business disruption. And your investment would signal to the market that Marlowe & Co. remains strong, she concluded, while giving us both the resources to document and counter whatever they've planned. Sadie studied Arthur's face, seeking ulterior motives. She found instead a steadiness she hadn't experienced in months, perhaps years. May I ask something personal? She ventured. He nodded. At the party, before everything happened, had we even spoken more than a few sentences to each other over the years? 7 conversations, at industry events, 1 panel discussion where you thoroughly dismantled my argument about cryptocurrency regulation. A hint of amusement touched his eyes. You were right, by the way. Her first genuine laugh in days emerged unexpectedly. Yet here we are. Here we are, he echoed. The city lights created patterns across the table between them, an unexpected moment of stillness in the chaos her life had become. I need 24 hours, she decided, to review this with Kennedy and my team. Of course, Arthur reached for the check, but his hand paused midway. There's one more thing, not in the proposal. A personal observation. Sadie waited. What happened wasn't just business betrayal. It was personal. Sometimes the professional damage is easier to address than the private wounds. His voice held no pity, just recognition. Don't underestimate the latter. The simple acknowledgement of her pain, without attempting to minimize or exploit it, created something delicate between them. Not romance, not yet, but understanding. 2 people who recognized the weight the other carried. 24 hours, she repeated, gathering her purse as she stood. And then we'll see what kind of partnership might be possible. Kennedy's conference room transformed into a war room within 48 hours. Digital displays tracked market movements and financial transactions. Secure servers housed mounting evidence. A hand-picked team of forensic accountants, cybersecurity experts, and legal specialists worked in coordinated shifts. At the center of it all stood Sadie, Kennedy, and Arthur, 3 distinct minds united by a common purpose. Yusuf expects me to be buried in divorce proceedings and emotional fallout, Sadie observed, studying the timeline they'd assembled. That gives us our window. Kennedy nodded, gesturing to the documents spread across the table. The divorce filing is deliberately complex, designed to consume time and resources. We've assigned a separate team to handle only that aspect. Meanwhile, Arthur added, we focus on the real battlefield, the financial markets. Their strategy crystallized into 3 concurrent phases. First, document the connection between Yusuf and Ava. Second, track the money trail through offshore accounts. Third, identify the upcoming market play they plan to execute. Arthur's technical team created a secure monitoring system that mirrored Marlowe & Co.'s client database, but with subtle alterations to certain investment profiles. If they access this data, they'll see exactly what we want them to see, the lead programmer explained. False triggers and response patterns that will influence their algorithm. Publicly, Sadie maintained the image Yusuf expected. She took personal leave from day-to-day operations, citing the need for privacy during a difficult time. Press releases indicated a company in transition. Cancellations of major appearances fed the narrative of a leader in retreat. Behind this carefully constructed facade, Sadie worked 18-hour days. She personally reviewed every piece of evidence, collaborated on technical specifications for monitoring systems, and maintained contact with key clients through secure channels. The first breakthrough came on day 5. Arthur's team identified an unusual pattern of stock purchases in a mid-sized pharmaceutical company. Transactions traced to a shell corporation with direct links to Ava Rice's previous identity. Test purchases, Arthur explained. They're verifying that the algorithms work as expected before the main event. Sadie's financial analysts immediately spotted the correlation. These trades align perfectly with the psychological profile data stolen from our client database. The second victory arrived when Kennedy's investigative team documented 3 meetings between Yusuf and Ava at a remote property in the Catskills. Photographs, voice recordings, and financial transfers provided irrefutable evidence of their collusion. Enough to interest federal investigators, Kennedy confirmed, but not yet enough to guarantee prosecution. Throughout it all, Arthur proved invaluable, not just for his resources, but for his perspective. Late one evening, as Sadie pored over transaction logs, searching for patterns, he placed a cup of tea beside her without comment. Hours later, he gently suggested she take a brief rest. "You won't defeat them if you collapse," he noted, his concern practical rather than condescending. "Is that what we're doing? Defeating them?" Sadie asked, rubbing her tired eyes. "No," Arthur replied. "We are establishing justice." Different goals entirely. On the 10th day, their monitoring system flagged a massive influx of capital into Yusuf's primary offshore account, over $300 million, 0 cents from anonymous sources. "The play is imminent," Sadie concluded. "We need to be ready." A week earlier, such news would have filled her with dread. Now, surrounded by evidence and supported by allies who valued both her professional expertise and personal dignity, Sadie felt something unexpected. Anticipation. "Alert the SEC," she instructed Kennedy. "It's time for Phase 2. Arthur watched as Sadie directed her team with renewed confidence. The woman who had stood frozen with divorce papers in her hands at the birthday party had transformed. Not through vengeance, but through methodical, principled action. "Tomorrow morning," Sadie announced to the room, "we set the trap." The Wall Street trading floor buzzed with activity as markets opened. Traders hunched over terminals, analysts whispered predictions, and algorithms executed millions in transactions per second. None noticed the small team gathered in the SEC's monitoring division, except for the ones who mattered. "Movement detected," announced the lead analyst, pointing to sudden activity in pharmaceutical and tech sectors, exactly as predicted. On 6 screens, transactions flashed in real time. Massive buy orders followed by coordinated sales, all flowing through the network of accounts they'd been tracking. Yusuf's algorithm deployed with precision, exploiting the false data points Sadie's team had planted. "Got them," Sadie said quietly, as federal agents documented every transaction. Within 30 minutes, trading in 17 companies was temporarily suspended. SEC officials contacted exchange administrators worldwide. Federal agents simultaneously executed search warrants at Horizon Technologies headquarters and 3 residential properties owned by Yusuf. The business news networks exploded with breaking alerts. Market manipulation scheme uncovered. Tech CEO implicated in financial fraud. FBI raids Horizon Technologies. Sadie watched from Kennedy's office as years of deception collapsed in hours. The evidence was overwhelming. Digital fingerprints linking Yusuf directly to market manipulation. Recorded conversations with Ava discussing the use of stolen client data. Wire transfers connecting them to foreign investors. "They never expected to be caught," Kennedy observed, reviewing the arrest warrants. "The arrogance is astounding." By afternoon, Yusuf's face dominated every financial news channel, not as the brilliant innovator he'd cultivated, but as the architect of one of the decade's most sophisticated fraud attempts. Perp walks replaced power lunches, his carefully constructed image shattered beyond repair. As the markets closed, Sadie addressed her company via a secure video conference. No press, no public statement yet. Just direct communication with the people who had trusted her leadership. "Today marks a new chapter for Marlowe and Co., she began, her voice steady. The events of recent weeks tested not just me personally, but our entire organization's integrity. I'm here to assure you that we have emerged stronger." Questions followed, practical concerns about clients, operations, the future. Sadie addressed each with transparency, neither minimizing the betrayal nor allowing it to define the company's path forward. When the call ended, Arthur waited in the adjacent conference room. "Impressive," he noted. "Most would have taken a victory lap." "Victory implies this was a contest," Sadie replied, gathering her notes. "It wasn't. It was restoration of what should have been protected all along, trust." The sunset painted Manhattan's skyline in gold and amber as they stood by the windows. Neither spoke for a moment, the weight of the past weeks settling into perspective. "When someone designs your humiliation so carefully," Sadie finally said, "they expect you to hide, retreat, disappear in shame." Arthur nodded. "Yet here you stand." "Here I stand," she echoed, the simple phrase containing volumes. Tomorrow would bring press conferences and market reactions, client meetings and reputation management, the practical work of rebuilding after betrayal, but tonight held a different kind of milestone. The quiet recognition that her worth had never depended on Yusuf's validation. "The investment offer," Arthur said, breaking the silence. "It remains open, though I understand if circumstances have changed." Sadie turned to face him directly. "The offer was made to a woman in crisis. I'm curious if it extends to a woman in transformation." "The terms improve," he replied, a genuine smile warming his features. "Partnership is most valuable between equals who choose it freely." The city lights began to emerge as darkness fell, millions of illuminations against the gathering night. Have you witnessed someone rise from betrayal to reclaim their power? This journey from devastation to strength isn't just inspiring, it's essential. Like and share if you believe in supporting those rebuilding after betrayal. Because sometimes our greatest transformations begin when we think everything is lost. 1 year after the birthday party that changed everything, Sadie stood at the helm of a transformed Marlowe & Co. The company had not merely survived, it had flourished, with new security protocols that became industry standards and an expanded client base built on unprecedented transparency. Yusuf awaited trial, his empire dismantled. Ava had turned state's witness, her testimony securing her own reduced sentence while ensuring justice would be complete. In her private office, Sadie touched the framed front page that now hung beside her degrees. Market manipulation scheme exposed by CEO's counteroffensive. Not a trophy of revenge, but a reminder of hard-won wisdom. The partnership with Kensington Innovations had evolved beyond financial investment. Arthur had become first a trusted advisor, then a friend, and eventually something neither had anticipated but both welcomed. Their connection, built on mutual respect rather than calculated advantage, proved that authentic bonds could form even in the wake of profound betrayal. The truest test isn't avoiding betrayal, Sadie often reflected, it's what you build from its aftermath. She had learned that strength emerges not from absence of pain, but from the conscious decision to transform it. Those allies appear in unexpected moments. That resilience isn't about maintaining perfection, but about rising and renewal. Sometimes betrayal comes gift-wrapped at your own birthday party. But sometimes the unwrapping of that painful package reveals not just destruction, but the blueprint for a more authentic life. One where trust is earned rather than assumed. Success is measured in integrity, and new beginnings wait on the other side of endings.